Welcome back to Respectfully, You're the Problem. I'm your host, Caroline. And real quick, if you are enjoying the podcast or know someone who would enjoy it too, or benefit from learning that they are, in fact, the problem, please send to them. And also, if you could leave me a 5-star review on Spotify, it's the little 3 dots on top of the main podcast page. You click that bad boy, scroll down to the bottom, rate podcast, boom, 5 stars. You really can make an impact and help more people find the show and keep me in the business of telling everyone they are a big problem. So, if you could share, you can even follow me on Instagram, caroline.jes, CAROLLINE.JES is my handle. And that's where you can catch all updates on episodes and see pictures of my dogs. Okay, let's get into today's episode. I think some of you need to stop healing. Pause for gasps. I know that goes against everything I have told you up until this point, but hang with me. I'm not telling you to fire your therapist, burn your self-help books, and start making reckless decisions because some woman with a microphone told you you're finally healed. I'm saying there comes a point where you have to stop learning about healing and growth and actually go practice it. Because some of you know way too much. You know your attachment style. You know your triggers. You know your childhood wounds. You know your own nervous system. You know your trauma responses. You know that you're protecting your inner child. Your inner child probably has a fucking PhD at this point. And yet, someone doesn't text you back for 3 hours and suddenly everything that we've learned has exited stage left. You start spiraling, checking their location. You're asking 3 friends what they think that LOL meant at the end of the text. And this is what I want to talk about today, because there is a very weird place you can get stuck in when you're trying to grow as a person. You can become really fucking good at understanding yourself without actually getting better at being out in the world and putting what you've learned into practice. At some point, you have to put the book down, close TikTok, stop diagnosing everybody around you, and go outside. Because life is the test. I love self-awareness, obviously. Half this fucking podcast is me asking you to look at yourself and be aware. But self-awareness is supposed to be the beginning of change. It's not the finish line. Being able to identify your shitty behavior doesn't suddenly make it not shitty. You don't get bonus points because you can explain it. I know I get defensive because growing up, I never felt heard. Okay, that's important. That explains it. But if every time someone gives you feedback, you immediately become defensive, we're not done here. Understanding where something came from gives you context. It gives you compassion. It gives you somewhere to start. But it doesn't give you a lifetime permission slip to keep doing it. There's a difference between I understand why I do this and I'm learning how to not do this anymore. And I think sometimes we confuse the two. We learn the vocabulary and start feeling like we've mastered the skill. You can know what emotional regulation means and still be emotionally dysregulated as hell. You can know what a boundary is and still have absolutely none. You can understand anxious attachment and still send that 4th text in a row. You can talk for 45 minutes about healthy communication and give somebody the silent treatment. That's not integration. That's memorization. Congratulations, you studied, Now there's a test. And here's where this gets really uncomfortable. Sometimes working on yourself becomes a very socially acceptable way to avoid actually living. Because learning feels productive, reading feels productive, journaling feels productive. Shoot, listening to a podcast feels productive. Watching videos about emotional intelligence feels productive. Analyzing your behavior feels productive. Analyzing other people's behavior feels productive. And all of those things can be productive. But eventually, what else are we looking for? How many different ways do you need someone to explain the same pattern to you? You fucking know. You need to speak up. You need to stop chasing unavailable people. You need to stop taking everything personally. You need to stop asking for reassurance every 12 minutes. You need to set the boundary. You need to stop responding immediately when you're pissed off. You know. The problem isn't that you're missing information. The problem is that doing it feels harder than learning it. And doing it is really uncomfortable because learning happens somewhere safe. Application doesn't. You can read about boundaries alone on your couch and feel extremely evolved. And then someone you love gets upset because you told them no. And suddenly you're like, actually, maybe I can compromise on that just this once. No, that's the part where the work starts. That's the learning for this. Application and integration. That's where it is. And there's only so much learning that you can do alone. And I don't mean in some cheesy, we heal in community Instagram caption kind of way. I mean, literally, you cannot practice relationship skills without relationships. You cannot practice conflict resolution without conflict. You cannot practice boundaries without somebody pushing against one. You cannot practice emotional regulation without a situation where someone actually dysregulates you. And you cannot practice not losing your shit without being in a situation where you would really, really like to lose your shit. That's where the reps are. Real life is the gym, and you need to do the reps. And you can read every book ever written about squats, but eventually you're going to have to pick up a fucking weight and drop it like it's hot. That's what I think happens to a lot of people. They keep preparing and preparing and preparing. I'm just focusing on myself right now. Great. For how long? Because at some point, I'm focusing on myself can quietly turn into I'm avoiding situations where I might have to find out whether I've actually changed. And that is an important distinction. There are absolutely seasons where you need to pull back. There are times when you do need to be alone. There are times when you need to recover, learn, reflect, figure out what the hell happened. But eventually, you have to go back outside. You have to re-enter society and put in your reps. You have to get uncomfortable actually applying all of the knowledge that you gained while you were in your season of healing and growth. That's what it's meant to be. It's only meant to be a season, not a lifetime. And the real test is when you are actually triggered. It's very easy to be emotionally intelligent when nobody's bothering you. Of course you're regulated. You're at home. You've got your little coffee. Nobody's texting you anything stupid. Life is beautiful. But that's not real life. Real life is when somebody says something that hits the exact nerve that you've spent 6 months trying to heal. That's when we find out. Can you notice what's happening while it's happening? Can you feel yourself getting defensive and not immediately attack? Can you feel yourself wanting reassurance and sit with the discomfort for just a minute before you ask somebody else to make it go away? Can you be angry without becoming cruel? Can you be hurt without punishing somebody? Can you hear something that you don't like without immediately deciding the other person is toxic? Can you say, okay, I'm triggered right now. Give me a minute. Instead of sending someone a dissertation that starts with, I'm actually completely calm. Because historically, nothing good has ever followed the words, I'm actually completely calm. You are not calm. Put the phone down. That's integration. That is regulation, not never getting triggered, not becoming some emotionally enlightened person who just floats through life completely unbothered, because that's not real. And if anyone ever tells you that it is, their pants are so on fire. The goal is that there starts to be a little bit of space between what you feel and what you do. Maybe before something happened and you reacted immediately. Now something happens, you notice it, you pause, you think, and then you choose. That's growth. It's not glamorous. Nobody's going to clap. There probably won't be a dramatic breakthrough. Sometimes growth literally looks like typing the text, reading it, and saying, okay, maybe that's a bit much, and deleting it, putting the phone down, and go and do something else for 20 minutes while you regulate, and then you come back and respond later. That is a win. That's regulation. And I think that therapy language and psychology content have created a whole other weird problem all on their own. We've gotten very good at sounding healthy, and sounding healthy and being healthy are wildly different things. You can call something a boundary when it's actually control. You can call avoidance protecting my peace. You can call shutting down regulating. You can call refusing accountability honoring my truth. You can call somebody toxic because they told you something about yourself you didn't want to hear. Do I need to say that again? You can know every correct word and still use some of them to protect yourself from having to change. That's why behavior matters. I don't really care how beautifully you can explain your growth. Show me. Not me personally. Please don't show up at my house with a boombox raised over your head playing, "This is my fight song." You know what I mean. Show it in the way you handle other people. Show it in the way that you handle yourself. Show it in the 5 seconds after somebody says something that really hurts your feelings. Show it when you're jealous, embarrassed, when you feel rejected. Show it when you don't get your way. Show it when you owe somebody an apology. Because anybody can be self-aware when they're talking about themselves theoretically. The question is, who are you when the situation is actually happening? There's another reason I think a lot of people get stuck here. They think they're supposed to finish healing, like there's going to be a graduation. Congratulations, you've completed personal growth. Here is your certificate. You may now enter society and be all you can be, you little scamp. That's not happening. You're never going to reach a point where nothing triggers you. You're never going to understand every single thing about yourself. You are never going to perfectly regulate every emotion. You're never going to handle every situation correctly. Sometimes you're going to know better and still fuck it up. That's the deal. It ain't pretty, but that's the truth. And thank God, because if we were expected to reach a point of completing self-healing and enlightenment, we'd never win. And what a fucking bummer life would be. But when uncomfortable situations happen and you are tested on your deepest wounds that you've spent the last 8 months healing, the answer isn't going to be, well, clearly, I need 17 more books before I interact with this other human. No, figure out what happened, take accountability, repair what you need to repair, and try again. Because that is the skill. Actually, being able to fuck something up, recognize it, apologize without making excuses, and behaving differently next time, that's probably a better indicator of emotional maturity than trying to never fuck up in the first place. You are going to mess up. The difference is that eventually you should start messing up differently. We cannot still be having the exact same meltdown over the exact same situation, using the exact same behavior 3 years into our healing journey. So here's what I want you to do, and it's very simple. Stop asking yourself, what else do I need to learn about myself, for a minute, okay? And try asking yourself, what do I already know that I am not practicing? And that is a much harder question, and probably one you avoid, because you probably already know the answer. Maybe you know you need to stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided to not understand you. Maybe you know you need to stop making your anxiety somebody else's emergency. Maybe you know you need to have a conversation that you've been avoiding. Maybe you know you need to stop going back to them. Maybe you know you need to listen instead of immediately defending yourself. Maybe you know you need to apologize. And maybe you know you just need to shut the fuck up sometimes. Whatever yours is, practice that. Not all of it, we're not rebuilding your entire personality by Thursday. Pick one thing at a time and start catching it in real time. Notice, pause, choose differently, repeat. Notice, pause, choose differently, repeat. That's how something stops being information you learned and starts becoming part of who you are. Self-awareness is incredibly important and, dare I say, crucial. Learning about yourself is important. Understanding why you became the person you are today is important. But eventually, understanding yourself has to change the way you live. Otherwise, you're just collecting more information and just putting it on a shelf. And I don't think the goal of healing is to spend the rest of your life thinking about healing. I think the goal is to eventually get so good at using what you've learned that you're just living. You're having relationships. You're taking risks. You're getting your feelings hurt. You're having uncomfortable conversations. You're making mistakes. You're repairing them. You're laughing. You're fucking things up occasionally. And you're trying again. You're participating in your own life. Because you don't need another 6 months of preparing to become the person you've been learning how to be. At some point, you have to practice being them. So put the book down, close the self-help video, take everything you've learned about yourself and go outside and live what you've been learning. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I truly cherish our time together, my young Padawans. Come back and see me next week, and we will work on our shit together.